The phone trembled in Daisy Jensen's hand as she dialed the number from the crumpled business card, mentally rehearsing the speech she had prepared about why she needed to reschedule her haircut appointment. She had already been late to work twice this week, and her boss had made it clear that a third time would have consequences. The styling appointment she had booked weeks ago suddenly seemed like a luxury she couldn't afford. Evans Holdings, how may I direct your call? Answered a crisp, professional voice that definitely did not belong to Jenny, her usual hairstylist. Daisy froze. I'm sorry, I think I have the wrong number. I was trying to reach Curl Up and Dye Salon. There was a moment of silence. This is the executive office of Evans Holdings. There's no salon here. The voice softened slightly. You might want to double-check that number. I'm so sorry to bother you, Daisy said, embarrassment flooding her cheeks even though the person on the other end couldn't see her. I must have misdialed. As she was about to hang up, a different voice came on the line deeper, with an authoritative tone that somehow managed to sound both amused and intrigued. Is someone looking for a haircut? Sir, I apologize for the interruption, the receptionist said. Wrong number. No, wait, the man said. I'll take this call. Daisy considered hanging up, but curiosity got the better of her. Hello there. This is Flynn Evans. I believe you were looking for a salon. Yes, but clearly I've dialed incorrectly, Daisy explained, suddenly very aware that she was speaking to someone important. Evans Holdings. Are you the Evans? He laughed, a warm sound that traveled through the phone line and somehow eased her embarrassment. Guilty as charged, and you are, Daisy Jensen. She tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, a nervous habit. I'm really sorry for bothering you, Mr. Evans. I should let you get back to your important CEO things. Honestly, this call is the most interesting thing that's happened today. Budget meetings aren't exactly riveting. His voice lowered conspiratorially. You've actually saved me from spreadsheet hell. Despite herself, Daisy smiled. Happy to help with your corporate prison break, but I should still try to find the right number for my salon. What salon was it again? Maybe I can help. Curl Up and Dye. It's on Maple Street. Let me look it up. She heard keyboard clicks in the background. Ah, here it is. Their number is almost identical to our private executive line, just one digit different. Easy mistake to make. That explains it, Daisy said, relief washing over her. Thank you for being so understanding. No problem at all. May I ask why you were calling them? Emergency haircut situation. Daisy wasn't sure why she was still talking to this stranger, but there was something in his voice that made her want to continue the conversation. Actually, I was calling to cancel. I can't afford to be late to work again this week, and the appointment is during my lunch break tomorrow. Ah, the eternal struggle between looking good and keeping the boss happy. Exactly, and since I need my paycheck more than I need a trim, the hair will have to wait, Flynn chuckled. Practical thinking. What do you do, Daisy Jensen? I work at Meridian Publishing. I'm an editor for their cookbook division. So you spend your days reading about delicious food. That sounds far more appealing than what I do. It has its moments, Daisy admitted. Though it does make me constantly hungry. Their conversation flowed surprisingly easily, and before Daisy realized it, 5 minutes had passed. She glanced at her watch and gasped. Mr. Evans, I've taken up too much of your time. I should really let you go. Flynn, please. And I assure you, this conversation has been the highlight of my day. Still, you must have important things to do. I do, he agreed. But I also believe in signs, Daisy Jensen, and you accidentally calling my private line seems like a sign I shouldn't ignore. Her heart skipped a beat. A sign of what? I'm not entirely sure yet, he said thoughtfully. But I'd like to find out. Would you consider having dinner with me tomorrow night? That way you can keep your hair appointment during lunch and still make it back to work on time. Daisy almost dropped her phone. Dinner. With you, but you don't even know me. That's generally the point of a first date, to get to know someone, unless I'm doing it wrong, she laughed despite herself. No, that's right, but you're a CEO and I'm just... A woman with a delightful voice who made me smile for the first time today, he finished for her. So, what do you say? Daisy hesitated. This was crazy. She didn't go out with strangers, especially not powerful executives who probably had women lining up to date them. And yet, there was something sincere in his voice that made her want to take a chance. "I'd like that," she finally said, surprising herself. "Excellent, I'll send a car for you at 7. Text your address to this number." He paused. "Unless that seems too forward," a little, Daisy admitted. "How about we meet somewhere instead?" "Fair enough. Do you know Valentino's on 5th? Daisy's eyes widened. Valentino's was one of the most exclusive restaurants in the city. "I've heard of it. 7 o'clock tomorrow, I'll make the reservation under my name." "Okay," she agreed, still not quite believing this was happening. After they hung up, Daisy stared at her phone in disbelief. Had she really just agreed to have dinner with Flynn Evans, CEO of Evans Holdings? She quickly searched his name online and felt her stomach flip when the results loaded. Flynn Evans was not just any CEO, he was one of the city's most eligible bachelors, having transformed his family's modest shipping company into a global logistics empire. Forbes had recently featured him in their 40 under 40 list, and she was having dinner with him tomorrow. What on earth had she gotten herself into? The next day passed in a blur. Daisy kept her hair appointment during lunch, suddenly grateful for the opportunity to look her best. Jenny, her hairstylist, couldn't believe it when Daisy told her about the accidental phone call. "You're going on a date with Flynn Evans," Jenny exclaimed. Scissors paused mid-snip. "The Flynn Evans? It's not a date," Daisy insisted, though her racing pulse suggested otherwise. "It's just dinner," Jenny rolled her eyes. "Honey, when a billionaire CEO asks you to Valentino's, it's a date." Billionaire. The word made Daisy's stomach clench. What could someone like Flynn Evans possibly see in her? That evening, Daisy stood outside Valentino's in a navy blue dress she had splurged on last year for her cousin's wedding. She had debated wearing something more casual, but ultimately decided this was a place where underdressing would be worse than overdressing. She was 10 minutes early, pacing nervously on the sidewalk, when a sleek black car pulled up. Flynn Evans stepped out, looking even more handsome than the photos she'd seen online. Tall with broad shoulders, he wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that accentuated his athletic build. His dark blonde hair was styled in a way that appeared effortless but probably cost more than her monthly rent, and his eyes, a striking blue-gray, locked onto hers immediately. "Daisy?" he asked, approaching with a warm smile. She nodded, suddenly unable to form words. "You look beautiful," he said, his eyes taking in her appearance with undisguised appreciation. "That color suits you." "Thank you," she managed. "You look nice too," he laughed. "Nice is very kind. I came straight from a board meeting and feel like I've been wearing this suit for days." His casual confession made her relax slightly. Maybe he was human after all. Inside the restaurant, they were escorted to a private table in a secluded corner. The maitre d' greeted Flynn by name, and the sommelier appeared instantly to discuss wine options. Daisy tried not to gawk at the opulent surroundings or the fact that she recognized at least 2 famous actors dining nearby. "This place is incredible," she whispered once they were alone. "It's one of my favorites," Flynn said, "but I have to admit I was a bit nervous about suggesting it." "You, nervous?" The idea seemed preposterous. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "I didn't want you to think I was showing off. Some women are impressed by all this," he gestured around the restaurant, "and that's not what I'm interested in." "What are you interested in?" she asked, genuinely curious. "Authentic connections. Those are surprisingly hard to find in my position." His eyes held hers. "When you called yesterday, you had no idea who I was. You were just yourself, funny, a little flustered, and completely genuine. It was refreshing." Daisy felt her cheeks warm under his gaze. "I'm still not sure why you asked me to dinner based on one wrong number." "Let's call it instinct," Flynn said. "I've built my business on knowing when to take calculated risks. You felt like the right kind of risk." The evening progressed with surprising ease. Flynn asked about her job, listening intently as she described her latest cookbook project. He told her about growing up in the shadow of his father's small shipping business, and how he'd recognized the potential to expand into global logistics when others thought he was being too ambitious. My father thought I was crazy when I proposed taking on debt to buy our first international shipping routes, he explained. But I convinced him to trust me, and that decision quadrupled our revenue within 2 years. That's impressive, Daisy said, genuinely meaning it. But it must have been scary to take such a big risk, Flynn nodded. The scariest decisions often have the greatest rewards, like asking out a woman who dialed my number by accident. Their eyes met across the table, and Daisy felt a flutter in her chest. There was something disarming about Flynn's honesty and the way he seemed genuinely interested in her thoughts and opinions. By the time dessert arrived, she had almost forgotten about his wealth and status. "So," Flynn said, as they shared a decadent chocolate soufflé, "would it be too forward to ask if I can see you again?" Daisy set down her spoon, considering. "This has been wonderful, Flynn, but I can't help wondering if someone like you and someone like me really make sense together." "Someone like me?" he repeated, raising an eyebrow. "You know what I mean. You run a billion-dollar company. You probably have a private jet and vacation homes in exotic locations. I clip coupons and get excited about 2-for-1 sales at the grocery store." Flynn reached across the table to take her hand. "Do you know what I see when I look at you, Daisy? I see someone passionate about her work, someone who values substance over status. You've made me laugh more tonight than I have in months. Why wouldn't I want to see more of that?" The sincerity in his eyes was impossible to doubt. Daisy smiled, turning her hand to lace her fingers with his. "When you put it that way, how can I say no?" Their second date was completely different from the first. Flynn picked her up in a modest sedan, my weekend car, he explained, and took her to a hole-in-the-wall pizzeria that had been his favorite since college. "Best pizza in the city," he declared, leading her to a worn booth in the back. "And no one here cares who I am or how much money I have." They shared a large pepperoni pizza and draft beers, and Flynn told her stories about his college days when he was just a regular student with big dreams. "I worked here for 3 months my sophomore year," he confessed, gesturing around the restaurant. "Got fired for giving away too many free slices to cute girls," Daisy laughed. "So you've always been a charmer." "I prefer to think of it as strategic relationship building," he teased. After dinner, they walked through a nearby park, talking about everything from favorite books to childhood memories. When their hands brushed, Flynn took hers naturally, as if they'd been doing this for years. "I have a confession," he said as they stopped near a fountain illuminated by soft lights. "I've been thinking about you constantly since our phone call. That hasn't happened to me well, ever." Daisy looked up at him, searching his face. "I've been thinking about you too. But part of me is still waiting for the catch." "The catch? You know, the moment when you reveal you're actually married, or secretly a jerk, or have some weird collection of taxidermied animals in your basement." Flynn burst out laughing. "No wife, trying hard not to be a jerk, and definitely no dead animals. Though I do have an embarrassingly large collection of vintage model trains that my grandfather started." "Model trains I can handle," she said with a smile. He stepped closer, his expression becoming serious. "Daisy, I know this has happened quickly, but there's something real here. At least it feels real to me." "It feels real to me too," she admitted. When he kissed her, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, as if their lips had been destined to meet from the moment she dialed the wrong number. Over the following weeks, they fell into a rhythm, seeing each other whenever their schedules allowed. Flynn was often busy with work, sometimes taking calls in the middle of their dates or having to reschedule at the last minute. Daisy understood, though she occasionally wondered if this whirlwind romance was sustainable. One evening, about 2 months after they'd started dating, Flynn invited her to his penthouse apartment for dinner. He had promised to cook, claiming his pasta carbonara was legendary. When Daisy arrived, she was struck not by the luxury of his home, though it was certainly impressive, but by how comfortable it felt. Bookshelves lined the walls, Family photos were displayed prominently, and the kitchen looked well used rather than just for show. "This isn't what I expected," she admitted as she wandered around the living room. Flynn looked up from the pasta he was stirring. "What were you expecting? Marble statues and gold-plated everything?" "Maybe a little," she confessed with a laugh. "But this feels like a real home." "That's the highest compliment you could give me," he said, coming around the kitchen island to kiss her hello. "I wanted you to see how I really live, not the image people have of me." After dinner, which was indeed delicious, they settled on the couch with glasses of wine. Flynn seemed unusually quiet, and Daisy sensed something was on his mind. "Everything okay?" she asked. He set down his glass and turned to face her. "I need to tell you something. I've been offered an incredible opportunity, but it's going to require some significant changes." Daisy's heart sank. Here it was the moment when reality intruded on their perfect bubble. "What kind of opportunity?" "Evans Holdings has been approached about a major acquisition in Europe. If it goes through, I'd need to spend considerable time in London over the next 6 months, possibly longer." "Oh." Daisy tried to keep her voice neutral. "That sounds like an amazing opportunity for your company." Flynn studied her face. "It is, but it complicates things between us, and that's the last thing I want." "We've only been dating for 2 months, Flynn." "You shouldn't make business decisions based on that." He took her hands in his. 2 months that have meant more to me than relationships that lasted years. Daisy, I'm falling in love with you. The idea of being an ocean apart is killing me." Her heart raced at his confession. "I'm falling for you too," she admitted. "But I don't want to be the reason you miss out on something important for your company." Flynn was quiet for a moment, his thumb tracing circles on the back of her hand. "What if you came with me to London?" Daisy blinked in surprise. "Flynn, I have a job, a life here." "I know, and I'm not asking you to give that up. But publishing is international. Maybe we could explore options for you to work remotely or transfer to a London office temporarily." "That's a huge step," she said, her mind reeling. "We've only known each other for such a short time." "Sometimes you just know," he said simply. "I knew the moment I heard your voice on that accidental phone call that you were going to be important to me." Daisy stood up, needing space to think. "This is all happening so fast. London. Living together, it's a lot to process." Flynn rose and crossed to where she stood by the window. "I understand, and I don't need an answer tonight. I just wanted to put it out there as a possibility." She looked up at him, at the face that had become so dear to her in such a short time. "When would you need to go?" "The initial meetings start next month. I'd be traveling back and forth at first, but by summer I'd need to be based there for a while." "That's only 3 months away," he nodded. "I know it's soon, but Daisy, I don't want to lose what we're building here." She leaned into him, resting her head against his chest. "I don't either." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of discussions and planning. Daisy spoke with her boss about the possibility of working remotely from London for a few months, surprising herself with how much she wanted to make this work. To her relief, Meridian Publishing was supportive, especially when she explained that she could potentially establish relationships with British cookbook authors while abroad. Flynn was busier than ever, preparing for the acquisition talks. But he made time for Daisy whenever possible, often showing up at her apartment late in the evening just to spend a few hours with her. 3 weeks before Flynn's first extended trip to London, Daisy was at his penthouse, helping him sort through what he'd need to pack. They had decided she would stay in New York for the first month, and if things were going well with the acquisition, she would join him after that. "What about this one?" she asked, holding up a tailored navy suit. Flynn glanced up from his laptop. "Definitely, that's my lucky negotiation suit." "You're going to need more than luck for this deal from what you've told me," she teased. He smiled, but she noticed it didn't quite reach his eyes. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the suit aside and coming to sit next to him on the bed. Flynn closed his laptop. "I just got an email from our legal team. There's a complication with the acquisition. The London company is pushing for a more permanent leadership presence, someone who would commit to being based there for at least 2 years. Daisy felt her heart sink. 2 years. That's a lot longer than 6 months. I know. He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture she now recognized as a sign of stress. I'm trying to negotiate, but they're being firm. They want the face of Evans Holdings to show long-term commitment to the European market. And that face is you, she said softly. He nodded. It's the biggest deal in our company's history. If it goes through, it would double our global reach. Then you have to do it, Daisy said, even as she felt a knot forming in her stomach. Your father built this company and you've made it what it is today. You can't walk away from an opportunity like this. Flynn looked at her intently. What about us? 2 years is a long time for a long-distance relationship, she admitted, especially one that's still so new. What if it wasn't long distance? Daisy stared at him. Flynn, I can't just move to London for 2 years. My career is here, my friends, my whole life. I understand that. He took her hands in his. But Daisy, I think you're the one for me. I've never felt this way about anyone before. The thought of being apart from you for 2 years is unbearable. What are you saying? She asked, her heart pounding. Flynn slid off the bed onto one knee, still holding her hands. I'm saying that I love you, Daisy Jensen. I know it's fast, probably too fast by most standards, but when you know, you know. And I know that I want to build a life with you, whether that's here or in London or anywhere else in the world. Tears sprang to Daisy's eyes. Flynn. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait until a more romantic moment, but it seems like now is the time. He opened the box to reveal a stunning diamond ring. Daisy Jensen, will you marry me? She gasped, staring at the ring, then at his earnest face. This wasn't how she had imagined a proposal surrounded by half-packed suitcases in the midst of a conversation about international business deals. And yet, it felt perfectly real and unscripted. This is crazy, she whispered. The craziest things are often the most right, he said. I accidentally fell in love with the woman who accidentally called my private line. If that's not fate, I don't know what is. Daisy laughed through her tears. When you put it that way. Is that a yes? He asked, his eyes hopeful. She took a deep breath. Yes. Yes, I'll marry you, Flynn Evans. His face broke into a radiant smile as he slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made for her. He stood, pulling her up into his arms, and kissed her deeply. When they finally broke apart, Daisy looked down at the ring sparkling on her finger. So, London, Flynn cupped her face in his hands. Only if you're sure. We could try long distance, or I could pass this deal to someone else in the company. She shook her head. No, this is too important. And honestly, the idea of living in London for a couple of years sounds like an adventure. I can work remotely, and who knows, maybe I'll discover the next great British baking star for Meridian. You're amazing, he said, kissing her again. You know that. I'm just a girl who dialed the wrong number and got incredibly lucky, she replied with a smile. 3 months later, they were married in an intimate ceremony at Flynn's family estate in Connecticut. Only close family and friends attended, making it a personal celebration rather than the society event many had expected. Daisy's parents, initially skeptical of the whirlwind romance, had been won over by Flynn's obvious devotion to their daughter. The following week, they moved to London, settling into a beautiful townhouse in Notting Hill that Flynn had purchased as a wedding gift. The transition wasn't without its challenges. Daisy had moments of homesickness, and Flynn worked long hours as the acquisition progressed, but they faced each obstacle together. Daisy found unexpected fulfillment in her remote work arrangement, eventually convincing Meridian to let her develop a British cookbook line. Flynn's business thrived, and although the acquisition took longer than anticipated, it ultimately proved to be the game changer he had predicted. One evening, a year after their move to London, they sat in their garden enjoying the rare sunshine of an English summer day. I got a call from the New York office today, Flynn said, pouring Daisy another glass of wine. They want me to come back for quarterly meetings next month. That would be nice, Daisy said. We could visit our friends, check on the apartment. Flynn nodded. I was thinking we might need to look for a bigger place when we eventually move back. Daisy set down her glass, smiling mysteriously. Actually, I've been thinking the same thing, you have. He asked, raising an eyebrow. She took his hand and placed it gently on her still flat stomach. We're going to need more space in about 7 months. Flynn's eyes widened as understanding dawned. Are you saying? I'm pregnant, she confirmed, her eyes shining with happy tears. With a jubilant shout, Flynn lifted her from her chair and spun her around, his laughter mingling with hers in the golden evening light. When he set her down, he kissed her with all the love and passion that had only grown stronger since that first accidental phone call. You know, he murmured against her lips, I should send a thank-you gift to that salon. Curl up and die, Daisy laughed. Why? Because their almost identical phone number brought me the greatest happiness of my life. He rested his forehead against hers, one hand gently cradling her stomach. Wrong numbers have never been so right. As the sun set over London, casting a warm glow over their garden, Daisy couldn't help but marvel at the journey that had brought them here. From a misdial to marriage, and now a baby on the way, all because of one accidental phone call to the wrong number that turned out to be exactly the right man. Sometimes, she thought, the most beautiful love stories begin with the simplest mistakes.